We've populated the real Firestore database with a note, but we are still showing only colorful placeholders in place of the note cards. Let's build an actual UI for them. Hello, welcome to Reso Coder, where you are getting prepared for real app development so that you will get freelance clients or a job and be confident about the apps you build. So subscribe and hit the bell to join us on our quest for becoming in-demand Flutter developers. So in this part we are going to replace all of these containers, which are either red, green or yellow for when there is a whole problem with a failure coming from Firestore when we are trying to get any kind of notes. We're going to replace these three containers with cards, with an error card, a success card, and then lastly a critical failure widget. Let's start off with the note card, which will be responsible for displaying successful data. As you can see, we are currently actually showing a green card in the list view. That's because we already have one note in Firestore, which we have populated in there in the previous part. But currently, of course, we cannot see the content of this note, and this is going to change by the end of this part. So we are now going to put the UI widget code directly into this else clause. Instead, we are going to break it out into a separate widget, which will live inside a separate file. So let's do just that. We are going to create a new file and call it notes card widget .dart. It lives under presentation, the notes overview, feature or sub-feature widgets, and right here. And as always, you can get the code from the link in the video description. So this is going to be a stateless widget. Let's call it note card. And let's import material.dart. This widget will need to hold a note. So let's create final note. Let's import the note entity and let's populate the constructor. So as you can see, the constructor will of course be able to get a key. This should always be present, especially for testing purposes when it comes to Flutter. And then of course note will be in there, and let's make it required. So add required. With this done, we can now just quickly come back to the notes overview body widget and replace this green container from the previous part with a note card and pass in a note which will come from this from this variable, final variable here, from the item builder of the list view. Now you can see that the green placeholder container has disappeared from the UI, and this way we are going to be able to see what we are actually developing inside the note card widget. So because it's called a card, it would be wise to display a card in there, a material card, and card can have a child, and this child should display things one under another. Firstly, it should display the body of the note, and then below this body, which I can actually show you in the finished app, there should be the to-dos. And if you want to display something below one another, that's the perfect use case for a column, right? So let's say column, and this column will have children, and these children will be a text which will display the body of the note. So text note dot body, and we want to get the actual string from this value object. So we're just going to say get or crash. And as we know already, at this stage of trying to get the body out of the note, We should not get any crashes, because actually if there is some sort of a failure present inside one of the value object in the node, you know what's going to happen. We are going to not display a node card. Instead, we are going to display this red container or the error card later on in this part. So invalid data will never get actually to be displayed. So we can be safe when we call get or crash. In other case, if we actually crash here, we just know that we have some real issues in our app and we should fix them ASAP. So crashing in that case is actually not that big of an issue, because it's a breaking error. And additionally, as you can see, we can immediately see something displayed inside of here, but it's too small. So we want to style this thing. So we're going to say style is going to be equal to text style. And let's just set the font size to 18. You could use themes for that. Possibly not hard code this in here, but I think we're good with hard coding in this case. So that's about it for the body of the node. And the next thing which should be displayed here are going to be the to-dos from the node. So what we want to do here is display the to-dos together with a vertical offset from the top, only if there are actually some to-dos contained inside the node, because it may as well happen that there are 0 to-dos. And for that, we are going to use the beautiful feature of Dart, which is specifically here for Flutter, and that is collection ifs. So right inside this list, we can say if node to-dos dot length is greater than 0. In that case, we want to basically embed another list. So we are unwrapping a list, unraveling a list. It's called somehow, you know what I mean, which will contain a constant size box with the height of 4. This will give us the vertical offset of 4 logical pixels from the top. And then in order to display to-dos, we want to use a wrap widget. A wrap widget is really cool because it puts its children next to each other. We're going to do it in the horizontal direction. And then as soon as there is not enough space in the chosen direction, what's going to happen, as you can see here, for example, here, important things to do immediately. In this card, the third to-do is put to the second line. This is what the wrap widget does. If there is not enough space in the given direction for just one line, it creates a second line and starts putting those widgets in the second line, then inside the third line, and so on until it runs out of widgets to display. So this is why we are using the wrap widget. And we need to give it children, and the children is again a list which will contain nodes, to-dos. This to-dos contains a list 3 of to-do item, and we need to map this list 3 of to-do items into widgets. So what we are going to do, we first need to obtain the actual KT list with which we can work. So we call get or crash on the list 3. And then we can map this KT list. We should be able to after we import kt.dart, right? So import kt or package kt. Interesting. kt.dart, I guess. Slash, I don't know, kt.dart. Dart. Should be it, right? Actually, it should be collection, like that. Okay, so this is what we need to import. Again, you can get the code from the link in the video description. And after importing this line, we now have access to the extension methods. So we can call map, and we want to map the to-do item to a respective widget, which can be displayed. And that widget will be called to-do display. It's going to again be a separate widget so that we do not clutter up this note card widget. For now, let's just map a to-do simply to an empty container so that it kind of works. Okay, and of course we need to take this KT list, which is returned from the map function, and convert it to an iterable, which is native to Dart, which the Flutter can then use, because Flutter does not understand KT lists. Of course, it's a library. We need to make Flutter understand what we are actually talking about, so we need to convert it to a native iterable. We do that by calling this iter thing on the map, on the KT list, which is returned by the map. And then in order to again unwrap this list, we just provide this operator again, those 3 dots, and this way the wrap widget will display all of the to-dos appropriately. Of course, currently we cannot see any to-dos because they are just displayed via an empty container. So let's change that, right? We're going to come below the note card and let's create a widget called to-do display. So stateless to-do display. It's gonna be a row because to-dos are represented by a check mark and a text inside one row, of course. And we need to be able to get a to-do over here into the to-do display widget. So again, we're gonna have a final to-do item to-do, and let's create constructor for final fields like that. Awesome. And actually, let's make to-do required again. Cool. So now inside this row, what do we want to do? Well, actually, of course, firstly, we want to display to-do display instead of a container and pass in the to-do. Now we can talk. So over here inside this row, we want to have children, which is going to be either an empty checkbox or a filled in checkbox, depending on whether the to-do is done or undone. So again, we want to use collection ifs. So if to-do dot done, we are going to say that we want to have an icon here. Icons dot checkbox, which is filled because we are talking about a done to do. And then the color of the icon will be the accent color from the theme. So theme of context accent color. Okay, we can see that now we have a done to do displayed because the data coming from Firestore contains a done to do. And otherwise, so else, or actually we cannot use else inside a collection if, so we need to provide another if statement, not to do dot done. In that case, we want to display again an icon, but this time it's going to display a checkbox outline blank, and the color will again come from a theme, but it will be the disabled color. Cool. Okay. Now we can actually go to Firestore. Actually, we're going to come there a little while later on. So let's just now focus on creating the text, which will display the to-do name. So to-do name get or crash. And now we should be all good. We can see that we have a to-do which is completed, and it says learn all the widgets. Nice. So now it's time to go to Firestore console. And once we hop in there, go to the database data tab, and let's edit the single node which we have created in the previous part. Actually, let's create another to-do, right? So it will be like, it will be a map, right? Map ID will be some sort of an ID. Done will be Boolean, will be not completed, and then name, I guess, will be hello complete me add. Okay, this should work, right? So if we come over to the app again, we see that it kind of is not working for some reason. The real-time aspect of Firestore has failed us, probably because I've been running this app for quite some time and it's kind of disconnected, I guess. So let's hard restart the app. Okay, and we can immediately see that the new to-do was added in there, and it says hello complete me, which is nice. So we know it works. If we make the to-do name shorter, it should theoretically be displayed in just one line. So let's just say hey. And now that it's shorter, really, unless we have done some sort of an error in building the UI, it should be displayed in just one line. And sure enough, we have made some sort of an error while building the UI, and I can immediately spot what we've done wrong. Actually, I have done it wrong. You have no part in my errors when I'm building a tutorial app. But anyway, the main axis size should be main axis size minimum. So as it says here, basically the main axis when it comes to a row is the horizontal axis, and this minimum will make sure that it takes up as little space as possible given by its children. And this will allow us to do this, display all of the, these to-dos inside a single row, if possible, inside a single line. Okay, so technically this is all we really need to do in order to display something meaningful to the user inside the note card widget, but it surely does not look very appealing. It's kind of centered, the to-dos are really clogged into just a small space. So let's change that by providing some meaningful padding and all that. So what are we going to do here? Well, we are at first going to provide spacing to the to-dos, which is done through the wrap widget, which displays all the to-dos. So spacing, let's give it 8 pixels, and it starts to look better. And then inside the column, let's play with the cross-axis alignment. Let's try to set it to start. Let's see what happens. It kind of looks like this, and I think that's looking pretty nice, right? So let's leave it at start, but now all of the child widgets of the column are crammed to the left side in the case of a left to right UI. So what we need to do here is again wrap the column inside another widget, which is going to be padding in this case, and we can actually leave it at 8 pixels. Now it's padded and it's looking much nicer. Now, what we have left out from all of the possible node entity fields is indeed the node color. We are not utilizing it anywhere. And what we should do is give a color to the card according to the color of the node. So thankfully, card has this beautiful color property which we can utilize. So we're just going to say node color, get or crash again. And here we go. The color of the node kind of changed. I'm not sure if you could even see that. Let's actually go again back to Firestore. And I'm going to change the color to something. I'm not sure what it's going to come out as. Let's just swap a few numbers in here. I'm really not certain what I'm doing, but it surely should change the color, right? It did. It's looking kind of weird right now, but hey, it's at least some sort of in color, which you can hopefully see on YouTube a little better. So that's cool. Now we are still not fully done with the node card widget yet. That's because if we take a look at the finished app, when I long press on a node, we should be presented with a dialog allowing us to delete the given node from the Firestore database. So we need to have a way to register long taps on our node cards and then show a dialog. There are multiple ways to do this, but because we also want to have a nice ink splash animation as per material guidelines whenever a user touches a card, we of course want to use an inkwell. So we are going to wrap this padding inside a widget called inkwell, and now we need to set a few things up. On tap, which means a short tap, this will be handled, but only later on, because whenever we tap on a node, once we have the node form page, of course, implemented, then we are going to be able to navigate to that node form and edit the given node. As you can see here, we can edit nodes. So we are going to implement this only later on. So to do implement navigation, but on long press we can implement even now. What we're gonna do here is get hold of the node actor block. So let's say context, or actually block provider, so that we import the block, or actually Flutter block package. Now we can use the extensions because they are also imported by that, by the virtue of that previous import. Context block of type node actor block, like that. And with this done, we also want to show a dialog with all of those buttons allowing the user to delete the given node. And deleting the node will of course happen by calling add node actor block event deleted and passing in the node, right? But this should only be called, this event should be added to the block only after the user confirms through the dialog that they truly want to delete the node, right? So in order to do that, we are going to break out the dialog into a separate method so that again we do not clutter up this on long press handler, this anonymous function. So still inside the note card widget, we're going to create a private method, void show deletion dialog. And this is going to accept build context, and also the note actor block, right? Note actor block. And let's do something over here. We want to show a dialog. Context is context. And then showing a dialog also requires us to specify a builder, which will build, of course, the UI for the dialog. So what do we want to do inside of this builder? Let's return an alert dialog. And this alert dialog can have a title, and it's going to be really simple. Let's just say const text selected note, so that the user knows which node he selected. The content of the alert dialog will show the body of the node, so it's going to be a text notes.body. Again, get or crash. And it's quite important to limit the length of the text of the note, because as you can see in the finished app, this kind of a long note is going to be limited only to 3 lines of text in the dialog, and then it's going to be ended with an ellipsis. So let's do just that. We're going to say max lines 3, and overflow will be text overflow ellipsis, which is nice. And then we want to have 2 action buttons for this dialog. So actions will be a list of widgets. The first one will be a flat button responsible for canceling the dialog if the user changes his mind. So inside onPressed, we want to just pop the alert dialog. So let's just say navigator.pop. This will pop the dialog off the stack, and it will say text cancel in all caps. Awesome. Then another flat button. Let's just duplicate it below. This one will have a block body for the onPressed. It will also pop the dialog, but before that, it's going to call note actor block add note actor event deleted, and it's going to delete the given note which the user has long pressed on, and it's going to say delete in all caps. Delete. Cool. So that would be it for the show deletion dialog. Now, of course, we need to actually show it on long press. So let's scroll up, and here inside on long press on the inkwell, we're going to say show deletion dialog passing context and note actor block, right? Awesome. Now we can long press here. It's going to show us the given note which we have selected, and I really do not want to delete it, because you know how long it has taken us in the previous part to build out a note manually, so I'm not really going to manually test the deletion, but it should work because the note actor block should really work. So we're going to leave it up to chance. Once we can create notes from the UI in the next parts, then we are going to test out also deleting the notes. Cool, now let's create a card which will be displayed whenever there is some sort of an error held inside the node or one of its value objects. So actually, let's create such an error case by going to Firestore again, and I'm going to change the name, or the name of the last to do to be empty. And this is invalid. So once we come back to the app, we're going to see the red placeholder container displayed. And this is perfect because just like we have replaced the green placeholder container by the note card, we are also going to replace this red one with a error note card. So let's open up the widgets folder, create a new file in there. It's going to be called error note card widget.dart, and it's going to be a simple stateless widget error note card. Let's import material and let's again swap it with the placeholder container. So let's say error note card, and actually the error note card should also take in a note. So let's create final note, create constructor for final fields, and also import the note entity, and let's make the note to be required. Awesome. So now populate the note with the note from the list of all notes. And here we go. We can actually delete these commas to make the code shorter. And let us implement the UI for the error note card, right? So just like in the case of the successful note card, it's gonna be a card. And we can immediately just populate the color to be the error color coming from the theme of the app. So theme of context error color. Okay, we still cannot see anything because there is no child for the card. So let's change that ASAP. The child will be again a column containing children, and this is going to be a list containing a text which will say invalid note, please contact support. Hopefully I got my commas right. I never understand how to put commas in the English language, but excuse me if I did something wrong. But anyway, you can immediately see that this text is displayed and the note is actually displayed as well, or the note card actually, the error note card, which is awesome. Now we need to fix the styling of the text because you cannot see it properly. Firstly, it's too small, and secondly, it's there is not enough contrast between the red color and the black color of the text. So we're going to say style theme of context primary text theme body text 2. This will make it a little bit more bold, I think, and then we're going to copy with font size 18. So it's going to be a little bit more bold and also white. Therefore, primary text theme is white, and it's also going to be a little bit bigger. The size will be 18. Now, I'm not sure if YouTube still does this, but a while back when you right-clicked on a video, you could see the details for nerds. That's how it was called. So we're also going to include the details for nerds inside the text, which will describe the failure which occurred in technical terms. We're going to display the error message. So let's create another text, details for nerds. This should also be styled, and the style will again come from a theme. So theme of context, and we're going to say primary text theme. This will be just the body text 2 without any further modifications. And then let's just copy this below, and we are going to display the actual error details in here, which will come from the note failure option, and we're going to fold it. In case there is no failure, so it's none, we're just going to return an empty string, but this will actually never occur here because this error node card will again be displayed only if there is some sort of a failure present here. But we still need to handle even the case when there is no failure. And otherwise, we're going to display the failure f converted to string. Awesome. So, as you can see here, it says value failure, string empty, and the failed value is an empty string basically. You cannot see it there, but it signifies an empty string. Additionally, let's offset this details for nerds from the invalid node text vertically by 2 pixels, so sized box, height 2, just like that. Looks a bit better. And then let's provide a padding to the column, so let's say padding of 4 pixels only. And now it's looking quite sharp, right? Cool, so this is also done, this error node card widget. We can come back to the Firestore console and change it back to be successful data. Hey, update, come back to the app, and everything is working as it should be, which is nice. So we have just handled the error case, the failure case, or the success case for individual nodes. But we also need to handle the case when there is some sort of a failure occurring because of insufficient permissions and so on. In other words, if we cannot get even just a single node from the database, this load failure case will kick in. Currently, we are displaying only a yellow container in the corner, but we want to display something a bit more elaborate. Now, in the previous part, we have found out that the insufficient permissions exception is not necessarily working as expected, and it's behaving in a very weird way. Again, if you have some ideas about why that could be, leave them in the comments, preferably for the previous part, because I'm just recording these parts in a row, so I could not have read your previous comments. And that's why, in order to get into this load failure state coming out of the node watcher block, what we need to do is to actually, the simplest way is to come to the infrastructure layer, nodes, node repository, implementation, right? And from here, where we say watch all, we are just going to short circuit the execution of this method, and we are always going to return or yield actually the insufficient permissions failure inside the left side of either. So just temporarily, let's comment out the code which is inside this watch all of the node repository implementation, and let's just yield this thing, insufficient permissions failure. And now we should just be able to hard restart, I guess, or something. Yep. And now we can see that the state which was emitted from the block is this load failure. So now we can build the UI for the load failure without any kind of an issue. The load failure will be represented by yet another widget, of course. It will be the critical failure display widget. So again, as we have become used to, we're going to create a new file under widgets, critical failure display widget .darts. This will again be a simple stateless widget, critical failure display. Let's import material, and this will actually take in the node failure so that we can display the details. Node failure, failure. And let's populate the constructor for final fields, and let's make this failure required. Awesome. Now we can come over to the nodes overview body widget and swap this placeholder container for the critical failure display and pass in the failure, which will be coming from state, right? Dot node failure. Everything is fitting together like Legos. That's nice. That's how it should be. So we can now come back to the critical display failure widget and implement its UI to display some more details to the user. So what should we build here? Well, again, we are going to return not a card this time, but instead a column which will contain children, which are going to be a text. The emoji for screaming fearful face cannot be missing from any sort of a good app, so we're going to put it in here and say style, text style. We're gonna make this huge, so font size will be 100. And let's check out how it looks like. Amazing. It's completely blurry, but that doesn't matter to us, right? Does it? And by the way, some of you have been asking me in the previous parts when I have added emojis here, how I do that. Well, on Windows at least, it's the Windows key and semicolon by default. So Windows key and semicolon. On Mac, I remembered the keyboard shortcut, but now I do not, so you'll have to find it out yourself on Mac. Sorry about that. And on Linux, you have a GNOME extension, which you can use, by the way, if you are running under the GNOME UI, or how it's called. So this is the first text, but it looks kind of off because it's stuck to the left and top corner. So we want to center the column, and then we also want to make the column as small as possible by setting its main axis size to be main axis size minimum, so that it's also centered on the vertical axis, right? And then we just want to display a text below which will contain different text for the different failures which can occur. So the text will be coming from a mapped failure. So let's say failure map, or actually we can say maybe map, in case that the or else runs. This will be reserved for unexpected errors, unexpected failures. So we are just going to say unexpected error. Then the new line, please contact support. Cool. Now you can see that it's looking really, really weird, this thing, which we have created here. We're going to fix it later on. Now we also want to handle insufficient permissions correctly, in which case we're going to say insufficient permissions. Good. Nice. So now we want to style this text. Well, at first we want to make sure that it's actually centered. So we're going to say text align center. And then we're going to say style, text style, font size will be 24. Let's make it constant. Awesome. And then this is completely over the top. You don't need to do this. You can actually skip this because we are not going to be sending any support emails, actual support emails in this tutorial series. But just so that it looks nice, we can add a flat button, and this will have a child containing a row, which will display children. And the first one will be an icon icons mail. Then let's also implement onPressed like that. The second thing inside of the row will be a size box, just to sort of push it apart. So sized box, provide horizontal padding, so width of 4 pixels, and then a text. And the text will say, I need help, in all caps, of course, because this is really serious stuff. Awesome, we can actually make the whole list constant like this. Cool. And actually we can also make the main axis size of the row to be minimum, and this will make sure that it's centered. The children of it will be centered on the screen, because we are centering the whole column, or actually no, the cross axis alignment is center, right? Is that correct? By default, I guess so. But anyway, when we set the main axis size of the row to be minimum, so it's going to take up the minimum space possible given by its children. So let's say min. Now it's going to be centered. And onPressed, we're not going to do again anything meaningful. We're just going to print sending email. Okay, let's check out the debug console. And when we press it, it says sending email, which is good to see. So it works. And yeah, with that we can, or actually we have tested that everything works properly. Actually, if we go back to the node repository and swap this insufficient permission failure to unexpected, restart, we're going to see unexpected error, please contact support. The same goes for unable to update. If we emit that, again, it's going to be unexpected error, please contact support. So that's cool. Now we can revert back to the actual code being run inside watch all of the repository implementation. And now we're gonna see that a note is displayed. Nice. So in this part, we have built the note card widget for the successful notes, error note card widget for whenever there is a failure occurring inside of the note, inside one of its value objects, and then also a critical failure display widget when there is some sort of a huge failure happening with communication with Firestore usually. And just like that, we have really implemented this notes overview page almost fully. The last thing that remains for us to implement here on this page is the uncompleted switch, which will allow us to see only the uncompleted notes, and it will hide the completed notes. So this is what we are going to build in the next part. So if you do not want to miss that and also more tutorials like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also join the notification squad by hitting the bell button to make sure you grow your Flutter skills, because here on ResoCoder, I am determined to provide you with the best tutorials and resources so that you will become an in-demand Flutter developer. And if you are serious about becoming a great Flutter developer who can build real apps for clients or at a job, go to flutter.education. By the way, a link is also in the video description to get the top curated Flutter news and resources aimed at improving your app development career. Over there, you can also subscribe to my mailing list to get the best Flutter resources delivered weekly right into your inbox. If this video helped you, give it a like and also share it with other developers who are surely going to find it beneficial too. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, and see you in the next video.